Welcome to the studio. I'm here with Dr. Adolph Brown. He is the 2024 keynote speaker. Doc Brown, your journey from being the first in your family to graduate from high school to becoming the youngest tenured full professor is incredibly inspiring. Can you share a little bit about what kept you motivated during your journey and what role education played?
Well, education was a huge part of that journey. I went to a school, elementary school, that was 98% free and reduced lunch. And I had educators that believed in all of us. They understood that high achievement is framed in high expectation. So even though we were coming from an environment that many of us didn't have much, they didn't see poverty as a disability. They really pushed us. They didn't lower the standards. And the relationships that were formed, the connections that teachers formed with me, made me want to be that person. And I feel like because I was pulled up out of that environment, now it's my opportunity to go back and do that for others.
That's wonderful. And you've got a session here at NSTA called Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover. It's about creating safe spaces and psychological safety for all. Can you talk a little bit about why that's so important in education and in life? Definitely.
I do master classes on that topic because I was a kid that came to school with a lot of problems. Mom and dad were married over 20 years. And my dad woke up one day and decided he didn't want that anymore. So we went from solidly middle class to inner city poverty overnight. My oldest sibling and only brother, Oscar, became my hero. He was murdered when I was 11. So I had all this baggage, and teachers saw that. And what I've experienced as a middle school teacher, as a former middle school administrative intern, as well as a college professor, is that oftentimes we will take things personally with the children as opposed to seriously, not understanding that every person you meet is carrying something you know nothing about. So when I say don't judge a book by its cover, if a child is misbehaving, that child's communicating. And it doesn't mean anything about you. Oftentimes, it's everyone that child has encountered prior to you. So it's okay to take it seriously, but not personally. Once you do that, you put that in your backpack. That's such a great way of putting it. Doc Brown, in your extensive experience in education, human behavior, and neuroscience, how do you see implicit biases forming in educational settings, and what are the best first steps to address them? Definitely. I don't think they're forming. We all innately have them. The brain basically scans the environment looking for danger. So we have to intentionally stop that process and kind of not look for the dirt, so to speak, but look for the gold in people. You know, it's an automatic process that the brain wants to keep us alive and safe. So what I'm saying is that we can't stop the 400 billion messages that the brain gets a second. And I'm not asking them to do that. What I'm asking people to do is anytime it has to do with another human being, give it a second thought. Give it a moment to breathe. Exactly. And you talk about self-exploration of one's own implicit biases. Can you give us an insight into what this process involves and how does it benefit educators and students alike? Definitely. I don't think there's something called the empathy gap. We talk a lot about empathy in society, and we think that empathy means putting on someone else's shoes. It doesn't. It's so much deeper than that. True empathy is that as I'm talking to you, first of all, you're listening, you're believing, but then you have to do some self-exploration, some self-reflection. You have to look within yourself and find similar instances or similar emotions or experiences. And then when you connect with that, then you're able to connect with me. So that's a huge process. And many of us don't engage in that. Our brain plays this game, go fish. It matches. And that's neuroscience in a nutshell. And it does that based on our experiences and our exposure. So unless you get to know me, your brain's going to put me in a space based on people you've seen like me or what you've heard about people like me. And that could come from television, that can come from the media, but it didn't come from me. Now, could you share an example of how automated thinking and how adjusting those automated patterns of thinking has made a tangible difference in an educational or a clinical setting? I have a saying for the teachers that I've worked with around the world. I say the most effective teachers are also the most reflective teachers. And what I'm saying there is right now we're the buzzwords in education. What is your why? Your why is not enough. The question that we have to ask ourselves before the why is, who am I? So the why is like the GPS. The engine is who you are. So we need to ask ourselves, I before why, because that will tell me my beliefs, my values, and my attitude. And once I can assess those, then I can have a much better tact in helping others.
You got to know who you are before you know where you're going.
Exactly.
Now, you're someone who's achieved significant academic success at such a young age. What advice do you have for students who may be facing challenges similar to those that you encountered when you were younger?
Some of the things that teachers told me when I was younger, that is not where I was from. It was where I was going. I tell students it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And I have just, whenever I address students, I tell them, if it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it. And basically having them become reflective as well. And that self-regulation, I'm into self-words, self-reflection. There's so much that starts with us, but we're looking for it in others. And that's a huge problem today in society.
Because you can only control yourself and your actions and your thoughts, right? But finally, you emphasize continual growth. What's something that you're sort of exploring or learning about that's getting you excited right now?
Probably the best thing that my teachers did for me wasn't that they were content experts, is what I learned to love learning. So I still read quite a bit. I'm still a research scientist. So anything that I do, particularly new things, I'm going to learn about it and not necessarily become an expert. I'm going to become proficient. So just being a continual learner, and I think that makes me a good teacher.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Doc Brown.